Right, there is not a number that can get you back in that ring. 80 million, 100 million.
Nah, because now you selling your soul.
$100 million, you can have my soul.
That's you. Now we know your character. Sometimes, you know, you look at people and you be like, dang, man, you ain't got no dignity. You ain't got no morals. Like, come on, man.
Sometimes the most powerful moments don't come with yelling. They don't come with insults. They don't come with dramatic speeches or viral one-liners designed to break the internet. Sometimes power shows up quietly, calm, controlled, precise. A podcaster casually joked that he would sell his soul for $100 million. It sounded like a typical internet comment. Something exaggerated, something meant to get laughs, something meant to sound bold and fearless. Then Terence Crawford responded, "That tells me about your character." No argument, no raised voice, no back and forth, no explanation, just a statement. And in that moment, the conversation stopped being about money. It stopped being about boxing. It stopped being about contracts and paydays and business. It became about values. Because when someone tells you what they're willing to trade themselves for, they are telling you exactly who they are. Not who they pretend to be online. Not who they market themselves as. Not who they want people to think they are. Who they actually are. Crawford didn't say the podcaster was wrong. He didn't call him greedy. He didn't clown him. He didn't embarrass him. He simply observed what the statement revealed, and observation cuts deeper than insults. Some people got a price tag. Crawford got a no sale sign. Everybody says they'd sell their soul for a bag, but half of those same people won't even sell their old couch on Facebook Marketplace. If you gotta sell your soul for success, you already lost the deal. Crawford basically said, keep the money, I like me. That's a different level of confidence. Most people are used to hearing athletes talk about securing the bag, maximizing earnings, and chasing the biggest payday possible. And there's nothing wrong with wanting financial security, but Crawford's words reminded everyone of something we don't talk about enough. Some things cost more than money. Your peace, your self-respect, your identity, your sanity, your soul. Money can change your lifestyle, but it can't replace who you are. Once you trade that away, no amount of zeros can buy it back. That's why this moment hit so hard, not because it was loud, not because it was disrespectful, but because it was honest. Crawford didn't flex wealth, he flexed boundaries. And in a culture that worships dollars, boundaries are revolutionary. We've heard the phrase our entire lives, everybody's got a price. It gets said like it's a law of nature, like gravity, like something no human being can escape. But what Crawford did in that moment was quietly challenge that entire belief system. Not everybody has a price. Some people have standards. Some people have boundaries. Some people draw lines so deep they refuse to cross them no matter how big the number is. When someone says they would sell their soul for money, even joking, they are really saying that nothing is off limits, that everything can be negotiated, that there is no line. Crawford's response said the opposite. Some things are not negotiable. Some things are not for sale. And that idea makes people uncomfortable because it forces a personal inventory. It forces people to look at their own lives and ask questions they usually avoid. What am I willing to compromise for success? What am I willing to tolerate for money? What parts of myself have I already traded away without even realizing it? A lot of people are walking around right now doing things they said they'd never do, staying in environments that drain them, accepting treatment they don't deserve, living lifestyles that make them miserable, all because the check clears. Crawford isn't pretending survival isn't real. He isn't ignoring that people need money. He's reminding people that money shouldn't be the only thing guiding your decisions, because money is a tool, not a compass. If money becomes your compass, you'll walk straight into places that destroy you. Crawford understands something most people don't figure out until it's too late. You don't just pay a price with your time. You pay with your energy. You pay with your peace. You pay with your mental health. You pay with who you slowly become. $100 million sounds incredible, but so does waking up and not hating your life. So does looking in the mirror and respecting who you see. So does knowing you didn't betray yourself to get ahead. That's the real flex. Crawford didn't say he was better than anyone. He didn't say people who chase money are evil. He simply made it clear where he stands. Some people measure success by bank accounts. Others measure success by self-respect. Crawford told us which one matters more to him. Context matters. Crawford isn't some hungry up-and-coming fighter trying to get his first big break. He isn't a journeyman hoping for one last payday. He isn't desperate. He's already reached the highest level of the sport. He's already won world titles. He's already unified divisions. He's already secured his place in boxing history. He's already made life-changing money. So when Crawford says that even massive money isn't enough to make him sell his soul, it carries weight. It hits different. It's easy to say money doesn't matter when you don't have it. It's powerful to say money doesn't control you when you already do. That's the difference. Crawford knows exactly what boxing has given him, but he also knows exactly what boxing has taken from him. Years of training, years of physical punishment, years of camps, years of pressure, years of sacrificing normal life. Fans see the highlight reels, they see the belts, they see the purses, they don't see the surgeries, they don't see the lingering injuries, they don't see the mornings where your body doesn't feel right, they don't see the long-term effects. Crawford does. He lives with them. So when somebody jokes about selling their soul for money, Crawford hears more than a joke. He hears a mindset that ignores the real cost, not just the financial cost, the human cost, the physical cost, the emotional cost, the spiritual cost. Crawford isn't saying he hates boxing. He isn't saying money is evil. He's saying he respects himself enough to know when enough is enough. He's saying his life is bigger than another paycheck. That's not weakness, that's strength, because walking away from money takes more courage than chasing it. Most people are brave when they're chasing something. Very few people are brave enough to walk away. Crawford is one of them. The real meaning of selling your soul. When people hear the phrase selling your soul, most of them picture something dramatic. Contracts, handshakes in dark rooms, secret meetings. But in real life, selling your soul usually doesn't look mystical. It looks ordinary. It looks like slow compromises. It looks like small yeses that turn into permanent situations. It looks like doing things you swore you'd never do and calling it growth. Selling your soul isn't always about fame. It isn't always about celebrity. It isn't always about millions. Sometimes it's about survival. Sometimes it's about pressure. Sometimes it's about fear. Fear of being broke. Fear of falling behind. Fear of being forgotten. So people start bending. They start accepting things that don't sit right. They start quieting their conscience. They start normalizing behavior they once judged. Not because they suddenly agree with it, but because it benefits them. That's how selling your soul actually happens. Not in one big moment, but in 1,000 small ones, one decision at a time, one compromise at a time, one justification at a time. And every industry has its version of this. Entertainment, corporate America, tech, music, sports, social media, politics, even regular 9-to-5 workplaces, different environments, same pressure, fall in line, play the game, don't rock the boat, do what everybody else is doing, because if you don't, you might lose access, you might lose opportunity, you might lose money. So people convince themselves it's just business. They convince themselves it's temporary. They convince themselves everybody does it. But deep down they know, they feel it. They feel when they crossed a line. They feel when they stopped being themselves. They feel when they started performing instead of living. That's what selling your soul really means. It means trading authenticity for approval, trading self-respect for security, trading who you are for who the system wants you to be. And once you start, it gets easier to keep going, because stopping would mean admitting you were wrong. Stopping would mean confronting what you became. Stopping would mean choosing yourself again. And that takes courage. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. Most people fail because they abandon themselves along the way. That's the real tragedy. Not that people sell their soul, but that so many feel like they have no other option. Selling your soul doesn't always happen under bright lights. Sometimes it happens under fluorescent ones. Office buildings, cubicles, Zoom calls, Slack messages, deadlines, performance reviews. Corporate America doesn't usually ask you to sell your soul outright. It asks you to slowly give pieces of yourself away. Don't speak up too much. Don't ask too many questions. Don't challenge leadership. Don't be difficult. Smile, nod, fall in line. At first it feels reasonable. You need the job. You got bills. You got responsibilities. You tell yourself it's temporary. You tell yourself you'll speak up later. But later turns into years. And one day you realize you've been quiet for so long you forgot what you actually think. You've been agreeable for so long you forgot what you actually want. You've been playing a role for so long, you forgot who you were before the role. That's how selling your soul looks in corporate spaces. It's not dramatic, it's slow, it's subtle, it's safe, and that's why it's dangerous. People start measuring their worth by titles, by salaries, by promotions, by company approval, instead of by how they feel when they wake up, instead of by whether they respect themselves, instead of by whether they're proud of what they do. A lot of people aren't chasing their purpose. They're chasing stability. And stability isn't bad. But when stability requires you to silence your values, something is wrong. You shouldn't have to shrink yourself to survive. You shouldn't have to pretend to be someone else just to pay rent. You shouldn't have to numb yourself to make it through the day. That's not success. That's endurance. And there's a big difference. Real success includes being able to breathe, being able to speak, being able to exist as yourself. When a system requires you to abandon who you are to succeed in it, that system is broken, not you. Money ain't everything. At some point in life, almost everyone reaches the same realization. Money ain't everything. It doesn't mean money doesn't matter. It doesn't mean money isn't useful. It doesn't mean money can't make life easier. It means money has limits. Money can buy comfort. Money can buy convenience. Money can buy access. But money cannot buy peace. Money cannot buy self-respect. Money cannot buy a clear conscience. You can have a full bank account and still feel empty. You can have expensive things and still hate your life. You can be financially rich and spiritually broke at the same time. A lot of people learn this the hard way. They spend years chasing the bag. They tell themselves once they hit a certain number, they'll be happy. Once they get this car, they'll feel complete. Once they get this house, they'll feel successful. Once they get this title, they'll feel validated. Then they get it. And the feeling fades. Not because they're ungrateful, but because money was never meant to be the source of fulfillment. Money is a tool, not a purpose. When money becomes your purpose, everything else becomes secondary. Your health becomes secondary. Your relationships become secondary. Your morals become flexible. Your happiness becomes conditional. And slowly, without realizing it, your life starts revolving around a number. That's a dangerous way to live because numbers never stop moving. There's always another level, another goal, another comparison, another person with more. So the chase never ends. Meanwhile, the things that actually matter start slipping away. Time, peace, family, joy, self-respect. Money can't replace those, no matter how much you have. That's why money ain't everything isn't a cliche. It's a warning, a reminder, a reality check. Use money. Don't let money use you. Because the richest people in the world aren't always the happiest. But the people who know who they are, they're usually doing just fine. Choosing yourself in a world that tells you to choose money. Everywhere you turn, there's a message being pushed. Get the bag, chase the bag, secure the bag, hustle harder, sleep later, grind more. And again, there's nothing wrong with working hard. There's nothing wrong with wanting more. But there's a problem when money becomes the only measure of success. Because when money becomes the only goal, you stop asking better questions. You stop asking, am I happy? Am I healthy? Do I like who I'm becoming? Do I recognize myself? Instead, everything turns into, how much does it pay? Is it worth it financially? Will this increase my income? Choosing yourself means asking a different set of questions. Does this align with who I am? Does this make me feel proud? Does this cost me my peace? Does this push me closer to the life I actually want? Those questions don't always lead to the most profitable path, but they usually lead to the most fulfilling one. Choosing yourself sometimes looks like turning down opportunities. Sometimes it looks like walking away from money. Sometimes it looks like starting over. Sometimes it looks like being misunderstood. But choosing yourself also looks like being able to sleep at night. It looks like not carrying around constant anxiety. It looks like not hating Mondays. It looks like not dreading your own life. A lot of people are rich on paper and miserable in reality. A lot of people look successful and feel empty. Choosing yourself doesn't guarantee you'll be wealthy, but it greatly increases the chances that you'll be okay. And being okay is underrated. Being okay means you're not at war with yourself. Being okay means you're not constantly pretending. Being okay means you're not living a life that feels fake. That's real success. Not just what you earn, but how you live. Everybody talks about generational wealth, passing down money, passing down property, passing down businesses, passing down assets, and all of that matters. But there's another side of that conversation that almost nobody wants to talk about. Generational wealth can quietly turn into a generational curse if it's built the wrong way. If you build wealth by abandoning yourself, if you build wealth by normalizing misery, if you build wealth by teaching your kids that money matters more than integrity, then what are you really passing down? You might pass down dollars, but you also pass down mindsets. You pass down stress. You pass down unhealthy relationships with work. You pass down the idea that suffering is just part of life. You pass down the belief that your value comes from how much you produce, not who you are. That's not a blessing. That's a curse with a nice title. A lot of people grew up watching their parents grind themselves into the ground, watching them stay in jobs they hated, watching them tolerate disrespect, watching them come home exhausted, angry, numb, and drained, and they were told, "I'm doing this for you." But nobody ever asked the kids if they wanted that kind of future, because a lot of kids would rather grow up with less money and more present parents, more peace in the house, more laughter, more emotional availability. Real generational wealth isn't just about what you leave behind. It's about what you model. It's about the standards you live by. It's about showing the next generation that success doesn't require self-destruction, that making a living doesn't have to mean hating your life, that you don't have to sell your soul to survive. If your children inherit money but also inherit trauma, if they inherit assets but also inherit burnout, that's not wealth. That's debt wearing a nice suit. True generational wealth looks like self-respect, healthy boundaries, emotional intelligence, purpose, peace. Those things compound too, just like money. Maybe the real goal isn't just to get rich. Maybe the real goal is to get whole. Because money can be spent, but a strong sense of self, that gets passed down, and that's a legacy worth leaving.